a choir is actually training people emotionally.
Up.
The choir is also a space where you learn how to deal with stress. Choir teaches you that you need to contribute, because each and every singer that is there needs to know the music and contribute to the project that they're working towards. And it gives people a sense of belonging and safety.
Up. And in a world that's so polarized, if we could just all start singing in a choir, the unity and our hearts beating together, wouldn't that be something amazing?
Well, music at the end of the day is all about communication. And I think what makes it even more difficult as a conductor working with a choir is you can't use your words. That's where choir can also teach us a lot about authentic leadership.
Yes.
Because it's finding your own voice, but also finding your voice within the team.
Before we dive into today's conversation, a heartfelt thank you to our sponsors who make this podcast possible. Your support helps us share powerful stories, spark important dialogue, and amplify voices that matter. We're proud to partner with brands that believe in our mission and invest in meaningful conversations.
Hello everyone, I am super excited to bring you this episode. If you know me, you will know that I have a secret obsession with choirs and music. Now, just to paint the picture, in my day-to-day job, I am a cultural translator and I am a creative provocateur, and I help businesses build bridges into the future, as well as with communities and humanity. And so for me, always looking at where the trends are going with humanity and seeing, the excitement around the analog wellness and where humanity is starting to turn to the retro, going back to the old things in a new way, getting rid of all of these distractions and actually connecting with humanity, culture, and creativity. I started really getting fascinated about this because I myself have been in many choirs, from school to when I left school to being in the church choir. Like, I was very much involved in singing in these choirs, and I absolutely loved what it taught me about leadership. And my friend Stephan Gericke, I've decided to bring him in so that we can actually have a chat about the synchronicities about choirs and what it teaches us about leadership. Now, a lot has been going on around the world, and there's been a lot of debates and conversations around music and choirs and the songs that's being sung. However, I just want to bring something back, and something unique to Africa is that we don't just speak, we sing. We protest with song. We sing our hearts out, but also we sing with praise, from revolutions to rituals. And this is how we articulate our stories, is through song and through music and through harmony. And this is something that I think that we really want to unpack today, is this whole ecosystem and the skills that we are going to need in the future that you can learn just by singing in a choir. Really, it's all the soft skills that we need for the future. Well, welcome, Stefan. So amazing to have a music conductor. Sorry, I forgot to mention that part. He is a music conductor. If you haven't noticed all the instruments behind him, welcome.
Hi, Carmen. Thank you so much for having me today on the podcast with you. I'm really looking forward to talk about this because as a conductor, one of the biggest things that they want to develop within us is leadership. And I've always kind of like thought about the conductor being the leader, but actually you're absolutely right. Being just a singer in the choir helps you to develop these leadership skills as well. It's all entwined, and I would love to unravel this entire concept with you today.
Super excited. Oh my gosh, I'm like, my ADHD brain, my squirrel brain is hopping around. But the first thing I notice is the violin in the back, and I'm going to tell you the funniest story. So my mom sent me for violin classes when I was like 9 or 10. So we tried to figure out what instrument am I going to play. My challenge was that I couldn't read music. I play everything by the ear. So I'll hear something, and then from that, when I hear the song a few times, I'll actually start playing it. And my mom sent me for violin classes, hoping that the classical training will help. But 3 months later, I was like, I don't like this, because I couldn't figure it out. I just couldn't figure out the strings, and it really is a painful experience with that. But then I moved over to guitar, and I then stopped. I stopped because it wasn't cool, or I didn't feel like I'm good enough. Like, this is maybe not the hobby for me because I'm not good enough. I'm not going to do it. And then years later, during the pandemic, I decided, hey, I'm going to get that piano. I'm going to pick up the guitar again. I'm going to get myself a little drum. I'm going to start playing around for myself, for nobody else, not to entertain. And to remove that pressure of feeling, I have to perform. What's your view on that?
No, it ties in with a couple of things that I thought of we should talk about today, because music is supposed to be for the love of it. Making music, not just on your own, but making music together. It's a hobby. It's so inherently human. It's something that's supposed to bring joy to your life. And as many hobbies today, it's kind of turned into make it or break it type of situation where you have to keep up with the Joneses if you want to use all those idioms, because looking at the influences, you have to either be the best or leave it. So there's no just playing tennis because you enjoy it. You have to kind of like strive to get better and better and better, and you can't just cook because you like eating. You kind of like have to cook to become a Michelin star. I mean, it's fun to pretend you're a Michelin star in the kitchen, but at the same time, especially with music, because it's something that you have to go for classes and to learn from a specialist, you kind of like feel now that you're paying money to do it, you must excel at it. And that's not always the case. I mean, so many people give up too soon because they believe that they're not achieving anything, but that's not the purpose of it. Like Beethoven and Mozart wrote all these piano sonatas not to be competed with in a competition, but because it's beautiful music. And so I'm so sorry to hear that you stopped playing, but I'm very glad that you picked it up again, because that's the point, is it's supposed to be something that brings joy to your life.
Yeah. Listen, I don't know how my husband's handling it, because my husband always asks me, please, can you put your earphones on when you play the piano? Can you put the sound off? Because, it can get, I can be very dramatic. Oh, my goodness.
And I actually believe that music is one of the few things that still teaches kids, especially, like long-term goals, because we live in this world of instant gratification and getting our answers as quickly as possible, just Googling it. And now, especially with the development of AI, ChatGPTs and Gemini and Grok and all those things, music is one of those few things that teaches you to kind of like invest in something over time, in a skill, because you have to practice weekly, you have to practice daily, and you don't see results the next day. It's like going to the gym. It's like losing weight. It's like all these things that we are losing the ability to kind of like, kind of continue over time to actually see the results.
Absolutely love that. So I see there's a piano behind you, so I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you think you can play something for us? was beautiful. My eyes, I'm like so emotional. What was that piece that was just absolutely beautiful?
It's kind of like the first part of the Chopin Fantasy Impromptu.
How long did it take you to learn that piece? Like, I'm just looking at all of the notes. I don't think there's one note you haven't played on that piano right now.
I basically learned that when I was in high school, and performed it at the Oudtshoorn Arts Festival, the KAK&K, as part of a group of the orchestra and things like that. And then recently decided to kind of like get it into my fingers again.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing. So music sounds like it's been part of your life your entire I'm still like, I'm so moved by that piece. Thank you so much for introducing us to that. I wanted to ask, how did this love for music develop? How did you even get into this kind of career?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, because music was never something I did. Music was who I am. I've just always been kind of like attracted to music, singing, humming. I meet new people, and one of the first things they kind of like comment is like, "You whistle a lot." So yes, I think my first concert I gave, I was barely able to stand up straight and talk, and I told my family to sit down, and I made them listen to me singing Christmas songs. And I did a Christmas concert without knowing any Christmas songs or Christmas lyrics. So I just stood there, made up stuff for about an hour with Merry Christmas and reindeer and things like that. And then from there, I don't know, when I was playing outside, I was either pretending to be a wolf or playing outside and pretending to be on stage, performing and singing. And then when I went to primary school, I think, which was the case with many of us of my age, you were taken into the hall and asked to go and sing Hansie Slim in front of the piano, and the teacher told you if you're in the choir or not. And for example, I've got an aunt that teaches singing, and she also said, and a lot of vocal pedagogues still believe that you should not start with singing lessons and training as a solo singer until you're at least 18 years old, and especially in the case of men, that their voices have broken. So before that, the only place that you can sing and express yourself is in the choir. So obviously times have changed, and you can send your 5-year-old for voice lessons now these days. But at the same time, when this was my family, when I grew up in the choir, singing together, and it became my way of expressing myself and my way of being able to express my musical side with others. So I felt like I was becoming part of a team. And I think for so many other kids in school, that's exactly what the choir means to them.
I absolutely love that. I actually want to tell you a very quick story, but something that I've really found fascinating over the years. I've always wondered about my name, right, and how I got my name. So I'm going to tell you the story. So my mom got sterilized after her first husband. He passed away of cancer, and she had 3 children with him. And she met my dad, and my dad said he wants to have a child, and my mom was like, I'm sterilized. And there was this technology from America, a microscopic surgery that they've never done in South Africa, and they said, okay, right, they'll experiment, and they'll do this experiment on my mom, and then see if she falls pregnant. And a few weeks after she had this operation, she fell pregnant, and then she was for 9 months on her back. The moment they found out she was pregnant, she had to be on her back. And it was one of the most horrifying experiences for my mom, like she said, and the depression and really going through this journey. And so she always had the radio on, and she always used to put music on to obviously soothe me inside of her, and to soothe herself as well during this process. And actually the other day I had a conversation with her about it, and I was really curious just to understand, what was happening there. And when every time Carmen the opera was playing on the radio, and when my mom had a cup of tea on her stomach, I used to kick the cup off, and my name was supposed to be Zanay, not Carmen. So the whole family decided they're going to call me Carmen instead of Zanay, because Zane stands for gift of God, and Carmen is what my name became. And Carmen means song. And, you know, the fascinating thing for me is it's always been something I'm very curious about. Like, you know, how I wasn't even here and I helped to choose my name, but at the same time as music had an impact on me even in the womb. And then later, many years later, one of my friends went into this thing where when she fell pregnant, she was also playing classical music to her unborn child. And I was like, this is a thing. And then there's actually studies that reveal that when you do that, you actually build the IQ of a child. So, you know, I really do believe that our connection to music and to creation and creativity, there's such a strong connection there.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I've got a bit of a personal connection to the opera Carmen as well, because it's the opera by Bizet, and I was looking for a concept to do a concert when we came back to South Africa in December, and we went to see the opera Carmen, and it triggered the ideas like, this is what I need, because I wanted to do a cabaret style concert, which I have never done before, where I would actually be performing on piano and violin and singing, but at the same time be telling a story. And actually stop in between each music and let the music become part of the narrative and tell the story in that way. But I needed a story. So I decided, Carmen it is. And I rewrote it in a way, putting it in a modern context. I made Carmen an influencer, which in its own right, you are also a big influencer in South Africa. And because the main character, the male character, Jose, is a policeman in the original opera, and he has to arrest her and then decides to let her go so that, he loses his job, etc., etc. But I decided to put it into a South African context. I made Jose work for SARS. And
Okay.
yeah, and I had to kind of like find a way to like, okay, but he still needs to arrest her. And I Googled a bit and was like, oh no, it looks like as if there is like the secret James Bond division of SARS where they send out people to arrest them if they haven't paid their taxes. Well, and I thought, even if it isn't true for the storyline, that would work. And I did the concert. Wow. It went very well. We did some music from Carmen, put in modern music and played it. The audience seemed to really enjoy the concert, and then afterwards this guy came to me and he's like, I work for SAR and I work for that division. Where did you find out about us? You're not supposed to know. So, and I could honestly tell I was like, nope, I just Googled it.
Nothing's a secret anymore.
No, exactly.
So, Stephan, I want to ask you a question. So we're living in a culture, especially, something that we've learned from the Western culture is this individualism, pop culture, and fandoms, and we celebrating one particular artist rather than a group. The boy bands, we don't even have boy bands. I don't know of any boy bands at the moment. But I mean, like, that evolution that has happened. And they said Trevor Noah actually made a very interesting point the other day when he said, when a country, the more developed it becomes, the more it loses its community. And we've seen over 30 years quite a dramatic decrease in third spaces where people used to gather in communities and go to church or go to a knitting circle, and those things are actually now starting to come back, and they call that the analog renaissance, moving into analog wellness. And now this is kind of things that we've started identifying and working on and creating experiences and events, and you and I are talking on some experiences around that as well. But I think the reason I'm mentioning this, what do you think is the importance of having these third spaces, singing in a choir, being part of something like this? Why is this important?
You're absolutely right in that. I think our community has become much more individualistic and much more isolated. Everyone is trying to win the rat race and make it to the top, but it's your own mountain that you have to climb. And so those places for cultural engagement are becoming less and less. And even if you go to a concert these days, if you go to one of these big concerts with a pop star, you might be one of 10,000 people there, but you're not engaging with the other concert goers, really. You are sharing in a shared experience, but to a large extent, it's you, and you're posting on Instagram that you were there and things. You're not contributing to the music making in that way. Whereas I think in the past, people went to church, they sang at church, and for example, and this comes from my perspective as a music educator, kids learned to sing before they came to school. These days, that's not the case. They listen to the radio, but they don't sing at home, and they don't have places to sing, or where they learn how to sing necessarily. Obviously not everywhere, but it's a kind of a concept in our community that we are losing, this getting together and making music together, because we're living in our isolated houses with the higher the brick walls, the higher the electric fencing, the better, the more you thrive and achieve on your own, the better, the more money you make, the better. So, we're kind of like losing that sense of Ubuntu and working together for the better, the benefit of the entire community.
It's interesting to me from a culture perspective how we are actually seeing so much hype around South Africa and how not just in sport, but also in how we sing and how we perform. Our choirs are like Ndlovu Choir. Remember Ndlovu Choir, where I was at the particular moment? I was in Mauritius. I had to go and do educational training there, and I was finished, and I had myself a glass of wine. I was sitting on a mattress overlooking the ocean, and I thought, let me see how the Ndlovu Choir is doing, and then realized that they've won, and I watched their performance. And here I was sitting bawling and crying in the middle of a very Lani hotel, and everybody thought there's something crazy wrong with me, but I was so proud of them. And I realized in that moment how much Africa has to teach the world and the misconceptions we have around Africa. And what is your view as to why is Africa so appealing to the world right now culturally?
Well, first I want to also contribute to what you were saying about how good our choirs are. We've got a mecca for choir singing in South Africa, and it's expanding, which I'm very excited about. There's more and more schools, for example, that see the benefit in having specialists come in and working with the choirs, so that, well, it's driven by competition in the sense, but on an educational perspective, the kids are then learning to sing properly again in choirs. And like I mentioned, we've got so many fantastic choirs in our country. If I think about the interculture rankings, I think we've got something like 4 choirs in the top 100 at the moment in the world. It's a couple of international competitions where they take how the choirs compete and what they achieve, and then they place them on these rankings. And one of these competitions is the World Choir Games, which I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with that, but it's pretty much like the Olympic Games just for choirs. And it's amazing how our choirs tend to always walk away with gold in these places. And at the moment, in the top 20, I think we've got Acoustica Chamber Singers in like 13th place. They're from Pretoria, and our choirs alternate in the top 10. And at the moment, second best in the world is the Tygerberg Children's Choir from Cape Town.
Oh, wow.
And to think it's a children's choir that's won all these professional choirs and adult choirs from all over the world, and they're ranking a second best. And so there's a couple of things that I think make our choirs so fantastic. And it's our culture, and specifically our diversity. Because we've got singers from different backgrounds, different ways of singing, different styles in which they grow up learning how to sing, and they've got different qualities in their voices that they then bring together, which gives our choirs a certain richness in the color and a certain richness in our resonance. And also, because we've got this diversity in our population, people that come to the choir sing and speak in different languages, so their pronunciation is different. We're not such a homogenous society that everyone says everything in exactly the same way. So we have to pay attention as choir conductors to get the people to produce the same type of vowels and produce the same type of sounds. So by doing that, we kind of like cultivate this the sound quality which we bring together from the different voice qualities, but paying attention to make it uniform. And talking about that, that's one thing that I've got so much respect for South African conductors for, because we do not have professional choirs where there's singers that are paid on a daily basis and receive a salary to sing. In some countries overseas and in some capitals, they've got that. Our choir musicians, our singers are not trained musicians. Often the case is that singing in choir is all they've ever done, and that's been their exposure to music. They don't know how to read music. They don't know how to play an instrument necessarily. And it is the conductor's job to train them to sing together on an international level, and they do it so well that we win all these international competitions. So I've got a lot of respect for our South African conductors that take these untrained singers and turn them into the world's best.
I absolutely love that. I mean, if we just look at what Ralph has done within Ndlovu Choir, I mean, it's something remarkable. And, you know, there's so more and more of that starting to come out. I mean, it's unbelievable. But I think what really intrigues me is to take us behind the curtain. When we start a choir, or you know, when you start a choir and you want to do auditions and you have to go through the whole process, getting everybody to sing along, diversity and inclusion. There's a research study that I thought might be interesting for the audience, that they did a study on people that were singing in a choir, and they recognized that there's so much resonance because you breathe together, your heart starts beating together. And in a world that's so polarized, if we could just all start singing in a choir, the unity in our hearts beating together, wouldn't that be something amazing? But also, I remember in the days that I used to be in choirs, we're all from different classes, different backgrounds, different cultures, singing in a choir. But when you've reached that altered state, like when your hearts start beating together, you actually build better connections with people afterwards and make better friends. And sometimes the friends that you make in the choirs are people that you never ever would make friends with outside in the outside world. What have you seen through your times working with choirs, getting them all from grassroots level all the way up to this posh level where they can compete? What is the dynamics that you've seen culturally between all of the choir members and how they build relationships and leadership skills?
Well, I would say I would refer to like a psychological phenomenon called synchrony or behavioral synchrony. Because like you said, people then join and then make music together. So they start breathing together. And in synchrony, what happens is people align their actions. It's like, for example, when you go to church and everyone has to read the same text, there's no one guiding them, but in some way or another, everyone starts reading at the same tempo. Everyone breathes in the same spot. If you asked the individuals to read the text for you, they were going to be all over the place. They're going to interpret it differently. But because they're doing it together, something clicks and everyone does it the same way. It syncs. It all aligns. And the same thing happens when we clap together or when we're moving together or when we're singing together. And that feeling of synchronicity is actually also shown to kind of like foster a feeling of cooperation. That feeling of synchronicity is actually shown to kind of like foster a sense of cooperation because you're doing the same thing at the same time, and that promotes social bonding and it kind of like creates a shared experience. And because in a choir you're working towards the same goal, you've got the same incentive to create something of beauty together. You let go of your differences and work together towards one single goal, and that creates a feeling of a shared identity.
That's deep. And you know, this is my particular opinion on things. I think we've gotten into an educational position where everything we teach is on PowerPoint. And there are certain skills you just can't learn on a PowerPoint. And one of that is emotional intelligence. I don't believe, having all of these amazing buzzwords and terminologies is wonderful because it helps us to understand it, but you can't understand emotional intelligence if you're not experiencing it. You have to understand the emotions that you're feeling in the moment that they're happening to you, and then understanding that. And I think that the same thing is with diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think that we've moved into a word where we have all these amazing words, intersectionality and biases, and we use all these incredible terminologies, but at the same time, as we're dealing with human beings and many people that don't have access to this educational speak. But what's interesting is McKinsey did a research study in 2020 where they started looking at people that are educated versus people that are not as educated in the workforce, and realized the more educated you are, the less humility you have. And that the people that are not as educated actually have all of these skills, how to deal with uncertainty, how to be flexible. They have all of the skills. So there needs to be some sort of collaboration that needs to happen with leadership in organizations and in society and in communities, because everybody's got skills that they can bring to the table to teach one another, because it's that unlearn, relearn, and learn scenario of, you get yourself educated, but then you learn all about technology, but you forget about humanity. I mean, what is the point of all of that? And we now need to be in a time where we start paying attention to humans first, because there seems to be something going on in the world where everything has gone lost. And there's a lot of us going, we don't want that. And I think that this is a beautiful way to unite and bring people together. What's your view?
No, absolutely, because in a choir as well, your voice matters. Choir teaches you that you need to contribute, because each and every singer that is there needs to know the music and contribute to the project that they're working towards. But at the same time, it's about teamwork. And if I'm thinking about how people can sometimes think they are helping taking a leadership position by singing louder than everyone else because they're showing them the way, it actually doesn't work in a choir setting. And you sometimes get that in leadership in companies as well, where people would kind of believe, in order to be a leader, I need to be bossy, I need to be dominating, I need to be demanding, I need to install fear. The deadline is coming up, you need to do this immediately. But that type of approach towards leadership has been changing in the past decades. It's not more an authoritarian approach. And we've had that in the music world with the conductors as well. The conductors would say, it's my way or the highway. You just do what I tell you. But especially in a choir where people are there because it's a voluntary position, you can't treat people that way. And you have to get them to become invested in the project. And in that way, as a leader, you're supposed to help develop their skills, and it's the soft skills and the emotional intelligence that makes all the difference. Like you said, a choir is actually training people emotionally, because not only do you have to be empathetic, or you have to become an empath, and you have to understand the emotions that the composer was trying to portray. You have to understand the emotions of the music. You have to understand the emotions of the lyricist and the lyrics, and then kind of understand what the person next to you is going through. What emotions are they bringing to the table and bringing to the music and the project that you are making together? So you have to kind of listen beyond words. You have to then find a way to collaborate and respond to each other on a human level, and without necessarily negotiating it or someone telling you what to do. And that is, to a large extent, what I believe is the essence of emotional intelligence, and how leaders can benefit from learning that in a choir environment, because you have to tune together, work together, and create this collaboration and teamwork.
If I just look at my experience in choirs, is you can't fake harmony. You cannot get away. If one voice is out, you hear it, and whether it's next to you or in the line behind you, you can hear it, especially if there's microphones involved. Oh my. But anyway, but also, you can't dominate the room. And also that everybody is a leader at that moment in time, and active listening. Like, you have to listen to the person next to you, but you also need to practice your own role in the choir. So it's not just singing collectively. You have to show up as your best self. So for example, I'm an alt. So if I sing in a choir, I don't sing with the sopranos when I practice. I have to practice with the alts, and then I have to go and practice afterwards to make sure that I get my rhythm and my tunes correct. And I think that this is the kind of thing as well as performance. And we look at performance. Performance is not just something that you do collectively. Performance is something that you need to work on individually, but also within your department or within your groups.
Indeed. And when you're preparing for a concert, it's actually kind of two contrasting concepts that need to be brought together, because when rehearsing, you are busy focusing and micromanaging, because you have to do everything in such detail and get everyone to do it in exactly the same way and at the same time. And to kind of like know the music almost off by heart so that they know what to do when and where. So during a rehearsal, there's this absolute left brain approach. I know this type of terminology is a bit outdated, but if I can refer to that, where you've got this logical approach, analyzing everything, and kind of like talking about details in the most minuscule way. And then when you get to the concert, that all goes out of the window, because then you're making art. Then it's a right-brained process, because you are performing. It is all subjective. It is all about the intent and the emotions and the communication behind it and the meaning that you wish to portray. It's about the larger concepts that have to come together because you worked on all these details and got everything in place during rehearsal. And it's this bridge that I think so many of us and corporations can benefit from, is finding a way to be detail orientated and make sure everything is in place as it should be, well, legally or for testing or in packaging and all those type of things. But at the same time, not micromanaging, and allowing the people to take autonomy of the final product and make that switch to take ownership and believing in what they're doing, so that they can walk on stage and give it their all and give it their best. Because there's a saying that for any type of musician, if you want to walk on stage, you have to be 300% prepared.
Yeah.
Because if you can make music at a 100% level, which, I mean, think about it in school. No one gets 100% for a test. If you get 60, you pass, and it's good enough. But in music, it's not, because if you've got a 100% preparedness level and you walk on stage, suddenly you're stressed. Suddenly your attention is all over the place. Suddenly people are watching you, and then you don't perform at 100%. And let's say then you perform at 60%, but it's so noticeable. If you're on stage, everyone knows, and it's out there for the public to see. So there's the saying that you need to know what you're doing 300%. Your attention to detail needs to be that accurate that you know it so well that when you walk on stage, if you know it 300%, you might be able to give 100%. And that's something all music requires, and especially in choir. You've got the safety of doing numbers, and you've got the safety of doing it as a group. But every single person needs to be able to give that 100% on stage. Otherwise, it will be noticed, and it will kind of like affect the people next to you. And it's that type of trust that we develop in a choir, because you can count on the people next to you, knowing that they will be prepared. They know what to do. You've rehearsed it. You've done it together before. They will have your back. And if you miss something, they will carry you and you can get back into it. If you need to take a sneak breath, the other person will hold the note. And that type of social trust kind of like brings us back to this feeling that in order to have it, you need to have these two extents. You need to be so detail orientated for the project, working on every single small moment. But at the same time, you have to keep the big picture and the strategy in mind as well, so that you can allow your singers to make magic.
Yeah, absolutely. As you were talking, it reminds me of, the amount of uncertainty that we have about the future. I think for the first time, people are giving us trajectories of where the future is going, but we have no idea where this is going to go, because we have, for the first time in modern history, we are at the brink of not understanding where this could all go, right? And the best way to get ready for the uncertainty is to put yourself in uncertain situations through the beginner's mindset. And the beginner's mindset is taking up a hobby. It's trying something new. And this is why I think choirs are so amazing, because it is something that you can do as a collective group, make friendships, build community, but at the same time is you are stepping into this beginner's mindset. But the goal needs to be audacious enough, I think, in order for it to work.
No, absolutely. And I mean, every time, even if you're very, let's say, what's the word? Experienced. So even though you might be a very experienced choir singer, every time you start a new project and you start to learn new music, you're at step number 1. You need to, even if you've got the tool sets to try and learn it quicker or understand it quicker, it's new music. It's a new concept. It's a new project. It's a new product that you need to get to know. You need to understand it. And every new piece of music makes you feel like an inexperienced beginner again, because you have to start exploring it. And I think what is beautiful in that is that it creates this curiosity. The kind of like a way for us to improve and approach this uncertainty is to always remain curious, so that we don't necessarily know everything there is to know, obviously not, but we sometimes get overwhelmed by everything that is so new and all the new developments, and trying to keep ahead of it or trying to just keep on top of it. But at the same time, as long as you've got a curious mindset, it allows you to remain positive, because suddenly anything new isn't overwhelming or a negative thing. It's like, I still need to learn something new at my age, but rather a positive thing, like, I get the opportunity to engage with something stimulating and something interesting. And not everything is for everyone, and you let it go if it doesn't work for you, but at least you were curious enough to tackle it in the first place. And I think that's very valuable as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think that is the number one thing that I've tried to push myself into, is especially with the podcast as well. The podcast also teaches you all of the future skills that you need. It's really a matter of putting yourself into a position where you're like, hang on, this is too comfortable. Let me remove the script today, or let me remove the pen today. I can't make notes. I need to listen more today, or ask a brave question. And in that brave question, the conversation goes into a completely different direction, and you have to hold space. And at the same time is like, ask the right questions to bring it to life for the audience. And it is all of these flexibility skills and agility skills that you start building. And the same thing is by taking up something new in some sort of hobby in some shape or form. So
exactly. If I can also interject there, I mean, one of these new scenarios that I don't know if it's the doomsday sayers, but that people bring up is that AI is taking away our ability to think for ourselves, because if you can write, and then you can process your thoughts, and then you can communicate your thoughts. And the way that AI is taking people, it's taking that away, because it's doing the thinking for you. And if you are not thinking for yourself, someone else will do the thinking for you.
Yeah. And it's the outsourced thinking, the brain rot. And I've even experienced, there was a time where I was like, you know what, I'm just going to quickly, I don't have much time. Let me quickly just go through ChatGPT and let me just find the information that I need and do what I need to do. But then when I found myself in boardrooms, I was like, hang on, I can't even remember what I put on paper. And I was like, this is making me feel so unsafe. This is not good. And my concern is the consciousness and the awareness of people. You should know yourself well enough to know are you more empowered or disempowered? Because you're disempowered when you can't think for yourself and you can't take those thoughts to a whole new level and articulate your thoughts. So, that is the reality. And I'm also that kind of girl that goes, what happens if there's an earthquake and the internet is not accessible to people? What are we going to do? Because everything is online. Where is the cultural wisdom? The wisdom from the indigenous people. How would we be able to farm? How would we be able to, this is what futurists do, is they do scenario planning, and we have to play with what is the knowns, unknowns, and, what is the potential futures that we need to consider and be prepared for. And I often think about, what is the different scenarios? We can't there's so much uncertainty. You can't say with certainty that AI is just going to be honky-dory all the time. We don't know. It's unprecedented times, and I'm all for AI. It's got huge potential. It's amazing. But I don't want to outsource my mind and outsource my thinking. If you are talking to AI and you are talking to it like it's your psychologist, or you're talking to it like it's your CEO, and all of those kind of dialogues that you're having that you wouldn't necessarily have with the public, you are in dangerous territory, because those conversations are not respected, and the confidentiality with that. And we are not just outsourcing our thinking, but we're also outsourcing our morals and outsourcing, our privacy, and giving away our power. And if we give away our power, we don't have choice.
And exactly, it's going through that process of thinking about the subject matter that you actually internalize it. So just having a computer giving you the answer, you've not made it your own. You haven't been able to process it and, think about it, and to a certain extent that you understand it. And the more you understand it, the more meaning you can add to it. And I wanted to add on to your discussion kind of like about doomsday scenarios and bringing it back to the choir, because if it's a doomsday scenario and the internet goes down, people are going to freak out, and we're going to need to be able to handle that stress and be able to innovate. And singing in the choir teaches you more of those soft skills where you'll be able to actually work with people and have these types of conversation in real life. But at the same time, the choir is also a space where you learn how to deal with stress. And it's a safe space to do so, because you're walking on stage. You're making yourself vulnerable. You're exposing yourself, working in front of 1,000 people, 100 people, opening up your mouth and kind of like let your raw emotions come out. And being in that space takes a lot of guts, and it takes a lot of bravery. So being able to handle with that, I'm thinking maybe I'm kind of like trying to put two things together that aren't necessarily related. But in a doomsday scenario, it's those type of bravery that you will need to be able to connect with other people in stressful situations, and to be able to say, we have to bound together. The zombies are upon us. Let us work towards the same goal. And that type of leadership that you've got in a choir is what you're going to need in order to convince others to join your cause.
Yeah. And so with conscious leaders, I always, because of my background in marketing and communications, personal branding is something that you have to take extremely seriously, and the thought leadership and what your message is to the world, your purpose, your message, the real thing that you want to bring to the world. And in order to do that, you have to be comfortable in having your voice heard, and you have to be comfortable in saying the things that makes other people uncomfortable, even sometimes yourself uncomfortable, but to speak your truth. And I think that also learning to sing together, you can start learning also how to voice your own voice, because I do think as within, so without. If you're actually learning that skill, how to make your voice more empowered. If you look at Tony Robbins, how Tony Robbins does all of these exercises with his voice to make his voice more powerful so that it can resonate more with audiences when he has 2, 3, 15,000 people in a room. there is power in our voices. And for so long, people believe, oh, I can't sing, or my voice is terrible, or I'm so false. It doesn't matter how you sing or how it sounds. It's a matter of getting comfortable and having your voice heard.
Exactly. And the choir also then offers a space which is safe enough to make mistakes while you're improving and learning that process. Because like you said, some people are like, no, I can't sing. I'm not even going to try. But because it's within a group, you are allowed to make mistakes because it's bound to happen. It's human. And at the same time, you as a singer need to develop the, kind of like the compassion for other people's mistakes. They are going to make mistakes just like you're going to make mistakes. And that creates this awareness of what other people's processes are and what your own process is. And within your own individual adventure and your own individual path and your journey, you have to collaborate with the others together to kind of like reach the same goal in the end. So that also, I think, is why choir promotes this type of a social cohesion, and it gives people a sense of belonging and safety. And many people, especially in like adults that have sung in my adult choirs, have admitted that they sing choir for their mental health, because it offers them a space where they can truly be themselves, but where they feel safe enough to do so. And also at the same time, it kind of like takes them out of their everyday stresses, because, like you mentioned at the beginning, choir allows you to breathe together. And in that way, it almost becomes meditative, because you are in a space where you are not concerned with your daily problems and bombarded by it. You're not busy overthinking because you have to concentrate. And you mentioned these type of studies before. Some of them were done at the University of Gothenburg in Sweden, and Lindenberger also found that you've got synchronicity not only in your breathing, because that's to be expected. The music is structured in such a way that you breathe at the same time. But because of that, you are then finding that your hearts start to sync. And your heart start to beat in the same tempo, guided by your breath. And this kind of gives you a calmness in your body, which is kind of like a meditation. And it creates a sense of emotional bonding because everyone's going through that same thing. And some of these studies, like I think it was Lindenberger, that also found that even your brain waves, like your beta and theta waves, start to sync with each other when singing in a choir. And all of that helps to regulate the parasympathetic activity in your body. And that gives us a sense of meditation and calmness, which all contributes to a feeling of, community.
I love it. It's almost like you're achieving an
healing.
altered state. And healing, yes.
And healing, yes.
I love that. Wow. But do you remember during the pandemic how so many virtual choirs started popping up? I think like that has also been something. I mean, we have to talk about the technology also, and how technology enables music, but also how it's to its detriment. But when we also just talk about choirs that just popped up during the pandemic, how healing that was for people during a time of tremendous uncertainty.
Exactly. I've got a lot of, it's a bit of a love-hate relationship because I've got a lot of respect for how virtual choirs have exposed music and how it allowed singers to still make music and feel a bit of that sense of belonging during a very difficult time. And I mean, I had to learn kind of like some of the skills as a classical musician to try and edit all these videos and get my little kids to sound as if they're doing the same thing. And because I went through that process, I also realized how synthetic it can be. Because a lot of these videos that get millions of likes, those group of people are not going to sound like that in real life. And it kind of like creates a bit of an illusion. And then people think they're going to buy a concert ticket and that's what the people are going to sound like. And I think it's especially detrimental to children and children's choirs, because people then show up thinking they're going to sound in a certain way, but that's not what kids necessarily sound like in real life. And by promoting choir with virtual choirs, it's fantastic, but people need to remember that it can't take away from that feeling you have at a live concert where there's a vibe, there's an atmosphere, there's an intent in the singers that they're trying to communicate something which is lost in a recording, or especially when things are broken up. A lot of these recordings are snippets. They record the same thing 50 times, and then someone chooses which is the best one, and they kind of like put it all together, and that's how a lot of the music is made. But in a concert, you've got one shot, you've got one chance, and life happens. There's a child that looks away and starts singing in the wrong moment. There's that imperfection is what we actually, I feel, connect to, because it makes it a human experience, and the intent and the meaning of the music comes across so much better in a live setting. So I think there's space and scope for both of these things, but people need to remain realistic about it's two different forms of art, it's two different forms of media, and both have got their place, and both can be used as an educational tool.
Yeah. And I mean, just to go back to what you said earlier, why people join choirs for mental health and feeling that's the only place where they can be themselves. It just speaks to the big challenge that we have, is that our authentic selves is not good enough. Once I went to a meeting, and a client said something so profound when she said to me, you know what, Carmen, I feel like I have to carry this invisible handbag with me all the time, where I can only take parts of myself out, what's suitable for the people around me. I can't show up as my whole self. And this is why we are sitting in a crisis where people feel that they can't be who they are, and their authentic selves. And our authentic selves is the originality, that is the quirkiness. And we are starting to compare ourselves and thinking that we need to be synthetic in order for people to like us. And those are all things that we need to be so careful of. And I'm one of the belief that people can feel when things are synthetic. We can feel when people are being inauthentic. And that's why we know we're not safe to show up authentically in a space, is because the people that showing up towards us is also not showing up authentically. And I think the same is translated into music from what I'm listening to. And furthermore is also, I believe that audiences can feel when things are fake. Like if you're going to have a concert and you are playing the soundtrack in the back end and not actually performing, I don't think people will realize there's something wrong.
Absolutely. Authenticity is something that is also inherent to being human. And in a concert, that is exposed, because for the music to really speak, you need to be vulnerable with your intention, and you need to be honest with your intention. And that doesn't come across if you are not being authentic to your intention or to who you are in the first place. And I think that's where choir can also teach us a lot about authentic leadership.
Yes.
Because it's finding your own voice, but also finding your voice within the team. And in that regard, allowing respect for other people's voices, regardless of what they might be doing differently. But you have a shared goal, and you have to be able to find a way to collaborate, because what you are doing together is beautiful.
Yeah.
And you believe in it.
I love that. I'm thinking of choreography, when you all have to do all these moves together, and not everybody is comfortable doing all those moves, but you still have to do the version of you in that moves so that you all can be cohesive. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh my word. I can talk to you all day. I can listen to you play all day. I can listen to music all day. It makes my heart so happy. I just wanted to ask you, like, in conclusion, what if you had to say, in your career and doing the work that you've done, how has music taught you to be a better leader?
Well, music at the end of the day is all about communication. And I think what makes it even more difficult as a conductor working with a choir is you can't use your words. You have to kind of like show all the people in front of you to follow you, and so that they can guide you, and so that they can be guided by you, by who you are and what your intent is, and that reflects in your body language, and that reflects in your passion for the music. So I think it's what we spoke about just now is that authentic leadership needs to come out. If you are passionate about what you are doing, people will pick up on it, because it's more about listening than just directing. That era of installing fear and just getting everyone to do what you want them to do because you told them so, that's long gone. And you're working with people, and you have to, and as what real leaders do, you have to develop their skills. You have to see their strengths, because every person brings something different to the table. And a real leader is someone that has a vision, but is capable of inspiring others to follow them to achieve that vision. And that's what a conductor's job is. They've got this music that they need to perform, and they need other people to invest in it and to believe in it. And more than that, they need those people to take ownership of what they are doing. And you have to empower the people singing for you, just like in a company. It's been proven, if people are passionate about what they do, they're going to reach their targets better. They're going to kind of like give it their all because they want it to succeed. And I think that's one of the most difficult things for any leader or a conductor to do, is to convince those people that they've got their own lives, they've got their own problems happening with their families and stuff like that, but to take ownership of your vision and the project as a whole, and use their strengths and work together as a team to make it realize, to create something that everyone can believe in.